Hello, I'm David from ComfortClick, and I would like to welcome you all to our second webinar, in which I'll present to you some useful features of our bOS software. The webinar will consist of two parts. The first part is going to be me explaining our software, and the second part is going to be our Q&A, where we'll be able to answer your questions you might have during the presentation. So please, if you do have any questions, please just write them down, and we will answer them at the end of our presentation, so there won't be any mix-ups or any unnecessary delays. So in order to operate and manage your building using our bOS software, you must first download and install our bOS server and our bOS configurator app, both of which can be found on our official webpage and can be both downloaded for free. In order to operate and manage your building, our bOS server must be running the whole time. And once both of those apps are installed and you run your bOS configurator, you'll be seeing the screen that I'm showing you right now, which is going to be your main screen. And in the center of the screen, you'll be able to see the list of all your controllers. So if you want to add a new controller, you can simply go to the right top part and click on the add button. Here you can enter your access ID, your login information, and add your controller. This access ID is a unique name for accessing the bOS server. This name enables adding a profile and accessing your bOS server without the need of knowing your IP address. So that means that when bOS client and our configurator will always connect to the right IP, this could either be to your local IP, so you're connected in the same network as your server, or connecting remotely through the internet. But if you do prefer using the connecting to the server using the IP, you can click on manual configuration and enter your IP address here of your server, and you'll be able to connect to the controller through the IP. So when you select your controller, you'll be able to see your main node, which is going to be your building node, the screen that I'm showing you right now. On the left corner, you'll be able to see that our configurator is built in a configuration tree. So expanding several our nodes can add, and you can see additional information if needed. But our main screen is the main building screen will show you your basic information about your current controller. So here you can see your what's your license status, what's your ID, your username, access ID, and even your networking settings. If you want to edit any of these settings, you can simply click on Edit button, log into your account. Here you can change your server name, you can change your access ID, you can also add a custom image, and if you want, you can also set and use dynamic IP. Once you click the update button, you must go to your configurator and click refresh in order for your configurator to get the updated settings that you just changed. When there's going to be a new update available, you can simply click on updates, template, and here you'll be able to see all the updates and new information about the current update, so you can simply install it here. Also, a yellow exclamation point will be added near your building node. Under more, you can also install our bOS client and our bOS configurator, and other networking settings. You can change your network settings. You can also reboot and shut down your controller. So our building node consists of 5 subnodes, which I'm briefly gonna show you and explain every one of them. So first is our general nodes. Here you can see all the information about your users connected to your controller. Here you can change the login information, you can change the language, you can set a custom image. You can also set your forward emails, SMS, and push notifications. If you do want to use the SMS forwarding, you will need a separate GSM modem connected to your server, so to receive a text message regarding your alerts. But and if you want to use our push notifications on your smart devices, you'll have to log in with your smart device into your controller, and you'll be and the smart device will receive a push token, which is later used to forward those alerts. So next node is going to be our messaging node. So if you want to use your own email service, you must enable the SMTP email service to true, and of course enter your email address, and you'll be receiving those alerts from your email. Our next node is going to be our translation node. This is especially used for especially some hotels or a multi-language user experience. So here you can add a custom language to your buttons, to your whole user interface. Our next node is a very useful and very powerful node, which is our templates node. Here under templates, you can change all of the colors and all of the icons of your whole user interface. Changing any color here would change the color for the whole user interface. I will be also showing you an example later on. Under files node, you can add a custom image and custom sound to your configuration. And on the time node, you can also, of course, set your time zone, so your time will be showing correctly. Now you can also add your working days, your vacations, and your holidays. I'll be later explaining also how to add a holiday and how to use that holiday to trigger a scene. So we can proudly say that we support more and more devices each year. We can simply add a device using our add button. Here you can see all the list of the devices that we support. We support from KNX to Z-Wave, Modbus, Sonos, DCT. So if you just want to add any of those devices, you can simply add it to configuration. We also support two universal drivers, which are basic and HTTP. Those drivers are usually used to control a lot of IoT devices, smart TVs, audio devices via HTTP, serial, TCP, or UDP protocol. Well, unfortunately, I do not have time to show you every one of our devices, so I'm just going to be showing you a couple of them. If you're interested in our KNX driver, you can view our previous webinar where we explained a little bit more how to add a device and how to use it in our configuration. And since there's a lot of inquiry regarding our Z-Wave driver, we will also make a separate webinar only for our Z-Wave devices, which is going to be at the end of April, maybe start of May. So now I'm going to show you our DSC driver. I'm going to simply use the add button to add it into our configuration. So under DCT, once you add the driver, a proper connection settings must be set in order for the DCT to connect to your controller. If you can also use our virtual keypad option. If you do use that option, the baud rate must be changed. I'll be telling you later about that. So virtual keypad acts like a real physical DCT keypad, including programming options. So you can also remotely program your DCT alarm. So if you do use this keypad option, the baud rate must be changed to 19200 in order to make everything work. If you do want to change the baud rate, your DCT alarm must be connected to the controller. On the DCT alarm, you can also add multiple partitions and zones according to your configuration. You can also choose from our already made template, which already consists of a simple program task, an alarm messaging, and also a already added keypad, so you can add that to your configuration. The same goes for your zones. So next device I'm going to be showing you are going to be our IP cameras. Already made a special folder regarding those cameras, so everything is going to be in order and nothing is going to be changed. So once you add your IP camera to configuration, a proper and correct streaming source must be set. If your camera does support on-weave protocol, you can also use our configure wizard to find your device, to find your camera, use the login information, and all the settings are going to be filled out automatically. One thing we need to note when you are using multiple IP cameras in one panel is that if all of those cameras are using live stream, your CPU can get overwhelmed. So I'm now going to be showing you how to avoid that. So I'm going to also add two more cameras. So I'm just going to copy and add two more cameras. One and two. Or best, since I already have a streaming here, I'm just gonna copy this camera. So we're gonna have live streams ready when we add them to our configuration. Camera 2. Now we have 3 separate cameras, and I'm gonna create a custom panel for those cameras. Let's just call them cameras. And now I'm going to add a simple frame. So here you'll be able to see how our visualization already works. Our visualization is very simple, as you'll see. It usually you can already just drag and drop your devices and your task into the screen, and it will work. So I'm going to change the width to something a little bit larger, and I'm going to add a frame. Now I'm going to change the number of rows and columns. So we're going to have all the cameras lined up correctly. And now I can simply drag and drop the cameras into our frame. So once I drag and drop the camera in, there's going to be an option menu here. And here you can see by default, we have streaming enabled. So we want to disable streaming. So we're only going to show snapshots. And I'm going to link a streaming panel to this streaming snapshot. So I'm going to disable streaming on 1. Camera 2 and camera 3. So now we have our cameras that are showing our snapshots, and now we're going to add a sub panel for each camera. So the sub panel is going to be displaying the live stream of the camera. So it's going to call it as camera 1 or camera. Next one is going to be our camera 1 and our camera 2. Now we simply drag and drop the IP camera into the screen. And of course we can enable streaming, so the camera is gonna show the actual live stream. I'm gonna change the width so the camera is gonna be full screen. I'm gonna do the same for the other 2 cameras. So drag and drop the camera 1, enable streaming, and camera 2, enable streaming. So now what we want to do is we want to link all these cameras to our sub panel. So we're gonna be displaying the live stream. So all we do, we use our panel link option, and then we select our correct camera. So we're going to select camera 1. Here is going to be our camera 1 and camera 2. So now, once we open this panel, we can click on the selected desired camera, and we'll be showing you the live stream. So here are snapshots video now. As you can see, they're all displaying snapshots. And when I click on one of those cameras, you'll be able to see, and this is now the live stream. Using this, you can avoid CPU overwhelming, so you don't have multiple cameras live streaming on one panel. Okay. So our next device is going to be our Sonos device. You can simply add any number of Sonos devices to your configuration. You must, of course, add the correct IP address in order to connect to your device. If you do add multiple Sonos devices, then you can simply, you must change the local port, so you'll be able to connect to the right Sonos device. I'm gonna add a custom panel for the Sonos, so you'll be able to see that we already have a Sonos player panel already prepared. So you can simply again drag and drop the Sonos device, and you'll be able to see that we already support. Of course, I have to change the number of rows. So the Sonos is going to be stretched out in the one zone, and as you can see now, the Sonos device is showing you all the. Let me just. I'm gonna link this back to Sonos. So I'm gonna be showing you the Sonos on our client device. So you can see I can now change the panel, and you'll be able to see our Sonos panel. Here you can change the volume. You can mute and unmute. You can change the bass level. It can stop and play sounds, and you'll be able to see the track, the current track you're listening to, the artist, and also the picture. So those are our devices that I'm going to be showing today. Next thing I'm going to be showing you is our tasks. We also, of course, offer you a large variety of different tasks. Unfortunately, I don't have time, of course, to show you all of them. I'm going to be showing you a couple of our tasks that you can use. So first thing is going to be our calculations. I'm going to add a simple folder so we don't mix any other values to our calculation tasks. And then I'm going to add our calculation. Calculation task is used for, of course, calculating any number of problems or anything you want to add into your configuration. We need to first, of course, add a variable into this configuration. So let's just add a value 1. We're going to add value 2. I'm going to add 3 separate values. Value 3. And I can see we have 3 separate values under our configuration, under our calculation task. To add those and to operate with those values, we are going to use our operations node task here, and we simply add those values into our calculation. In this example, I'll be showing you how to multiply the first value to the sum of second and third value. So first we want to add our first value, which is going to be our value 1. Click OK, and then we're going to add this. So like I said, we're going to multiply our second and third value. So I'm going to add my second value and add addition. Of course, because we're summing 2 numbers, we're going to add our third value. And here you can see that this task is going to calculate the first value. It's going to multiply the second and the third value, which are going to be summed. So now I can change the current value of our variables. Let's change this to, let's say, 2. I'm also going to change the template here, so I'm going to be using it later to show you in our client how can you change these settings live. So our second value is going to be value, let's say 1, and also be changing the set point. And our third value is going to be, let's say, 3. So if we go, so 1 plus 3 equals 4 times 2, and the calculation should be 8. So as you can see, everything is working as it should. Now I'm going to also show you how to add that into a panel. But first, I can also show you another task that we can use on the same case, which is going to be our minimum, maximum, and average task. I can simply add this task into our calculation. I'll add our input values, which are going to be value 1, 2, and 3. And now the min, max, and average will calculate, of course, minimum, maximum, and average value of all of those values. So now I'm going to add a custom panel. Let's call it calculations. Here I'm gonna simply add 2 frames. On the left side is gonna be my calculation, and on the right side is gonna be my my minimum and maximum. So I can change the title of each frame simply by going into appearance and change the text. So here's gonna be my calculations, and here is gonna be my min, let's say max. There we go. Now I can, of course, simply drag and drop all those values into our frame. Let's say value 1, value 2, and value 3. And here I can also check what's the current value of the calculation. And on the right side, I'm going to drag and drop our min, max, and average value. So I'm going to select our maximum value, max value. Let's add our minimum value and our average value to the configuration. So now, once I go, now I'm going to show you how we're going to add this to our client. So I'm going to add a custom panel called calculations. And now I'm going to use our clone function to clone this current panel to our calculations panel. So basically, I'm just kind of copying the calculations task panel to our theme panel. So now I can open this calculation panel and see what is our current calculation value and our minimum, maximum, and average value. Here I can, of course, change everything live, and everything will change on the spot. I can play around with the numbers and see if everything works. Here you can see that calculation is working and our values are changing. So this is going to be our calculations and minimum, maximum, average task. Now I'm going to add another folder, so make everything look a little bit better. I'm going to show you our timer. Let's say I'm going to call it time, and I'm going to add our timer task to our configuration. First, we need to set. Okay, what does timer do? Timer actually, when you put a certain trigger, the timer is going to be triggered, and it's going to run for a certain amount of time, which we can set here. Let's say 2 minutes, and let's say we want to turn on a light when the timer turns on. Let's call it light. So when the timer is going to be triggered, the light should turn on. Now we need to set our commands. So what will happen on certain type of timer? So we need to set our fixed value of our light, and let's say when the light is true, the light is turned on, and when the light is false, the light will be off. And now I can set our start, stop, and end commands, and also we can set our trigger. When do we want this timer to be triggered? So we want this timer to be. We want to turn on the light when the time of day is night. So when it's going to be night outside, we want to trigger this and turn on the light for, let's say, now 2 minutes. So now we want to tell our timer what to do when the timer starts. So we're gonna, when the timer is triggered, we want to turn the light on. When we stop the timer, we want the timer to turn the light off. And when the timer runs out, we want to turn the light off. So that's basically the timer, how it works. Now I'm also going to be creating a control panel just so you can see we can add additional additional settings. So let's call this settings frame. Here we go. And here I can add a simple frame in the middle. We can let's say see if the timer is turned on. we can here then change, if we want to change the timer duration for hours, let's say minutes. And we can also check what is happening with the light. I'm also going to change the template of the light to lamp, so we know we're talking about a lamp. And I'm going to simply drag the light into the frame and see what is going on with the light. I can also turn on and off the light here. Okay, oh, here you can also see what's the current time of our timer. Also, a very useful feature is I am going to unlock the button menu, so we can add additional functions on the bottom. So I'm just gonna set our bottom menu to start the timer, and we can stop the timer. So this is gonna be on the bottom side. Here we can also change the icons or the images. So we can simply go under appearances and images and select a image from our predefined images. Let's say we select our play button here, and we select our stop button. So now we can, if we press play and stop, we will stop and start the timer. Now I'm going to be showing you a button control. So we're going to call this control button. And I'm going to simply use our positioning option to free, which means that I can move that button on the screen and resize it as I want. I'm going to set this to enabled. So now you can see, since my my positioning is set to free, I can move around the timer. I can change the size of the timer. So now I'm going to add our settings frame to our timer. So first I need to do is I'm going to enable form, which is going to enable us additional settings we can set. So I'm going to link this panel to our settings frame. There we go. And then I'm going to add a custom theme for our time. Let's just call it timer. And I can set this positioning to free. We want that button to be anywhere. And I can drag and drop the button into our theme. And if I go to our client and open this, you can see we have the timer here. I can start and stop the timer as this. And we can also click and hold to open our settings frame. And here we have additional settings if you want to change. Here we can change the number of hours we want to trigger, minutes. Here you can see what is happening with the light. And we can also start and stop the timer here. So I can simply, if the timer is set to yes, I can start the timer. You see that the timer is going off, the light is turned on. And if I stop the timer will reset and the light is turned off. So next task I'm going to be showing you is going to be our program task. And I'm also going to be combining this program task with our holiday. So I'm going to create a custom folder holiday. And first of all, we need to, of course, create our holiday. We're going to go back to our time, holidays, and we're going to add a custom holiday. Let's call this holiday webinar. So when do we want this to happen? Let's say today is March 16th. Simply click add, and the new holiday is added. Now I can go under holiday. I'm going to add our program task, like I mentioned. And we want that holiday to trigger a scene, which is going to turn on our lights and our Sonos device. So let's say I'm going to add 2 lights, light 1 and light 2. And of course, I'm going to add our scene. Scene is basically just going to trigger and set those lights to desired, what do we want? So we want to turn the light on or off. But firstly, I need to set the values of these lights to lamp 1 and lamp 2 and add those lamps into our scene. So holiday, I can add these two. I can click and drag to add both of them. And we also want to add our Sonos device. I'm going to be adding Sonos. Or I can just show you how to turn off those lights. So I'm going to select both of those lights, right click and set value to true. So when the scene is going to be triggered, these two lights are going to turn on. So when do we want to trigger this this task? Is when we have, of course, our holiday. When our webinar holiday is true, and first we need to set the time. When do we want to start, or time of day? Let's say we want to start it at, we can say at let's say time of day. Let's say at 8 o'clock. Okay, so it's gonna be 8 o'clock, and first we need to check if if the holiday name is correct. So we want to check if the holiday is webinar. That is true. And now we run our scene from our tasks. You need to check run. And now we can also run our Sonos device from this task. So I can play. So this task is also going to run Sonos. So if we check now when it's going to be 8 o'clock, and if it's our holiday, so our webinar, this holiday scene is going to be triggered. And the lights will turn on, and the Sonos is going to be played. So this will sum up our webinar. Thank you for your time and your patience. If you have any questions, we'll be answering them now. By the questions will be answered by my colleague Matic. So again, thank you for your listening. Until next time.
Hello, my name is Matic and I'm from ComfortClick. I will be answering questions now. So please, if you have any questions, any simple questions that we can discuss now, we can do that now. Just write down on the comment in the YouTube. I will answer to these questions that is listed here. Where can I find documentation on bOS? You can find it on our webpage under support tab. You will find all the manuals for the server, configurator, and the client. Okay, so I have one question now. Can you show me example on how calculation result can be returned to KNX? Yes, that can be easily done. So I will just use our pre-made calculation that David made. So this is our result, and I would like to send this result to my KNX, for example, 2-byte float value, and this is my calculation result, and I enter my group address of the calculation result, for example 1, 2, 5, and now under calculations I will create a new program task, and here I will link the value from calculation with the value of calculation result on KNX. I will set the trigger, so every time the value needs to be forward, every time when my calculation is changed. So every time when the value changes, I want to write the value to my KNX. So I will set calculation result and set the value of my calculation to it. So that's it. Now every time when this value will change, it will write down to the KNX. So for example, now I will show you the demo mode, and you will see here, if I change, for example, value 1 now to 3, now my calculation has changed, and it is also written here in group address. Okay, the next question is which door locks? What do you mean by door locks? I need more specific. I need more details about in this question. How to control white channel separately on RGB mixer when I change color. Okay, so if I take RGB mixer and I link my values, so link this values and white. And now I'll create a panel. And here you need to enable white channel. And now you can see in client that you can change the desired color, and also the white channel can be changed. Light intensity can be controlled if you're using, for example, KNX dimmer. Then you'll have usually 1 byte unsigned value, which is your dimming value, and you define the group address, and you define the template. So that's my dimmer, and you just drag and drop it to your theme, and you can already set the intensity of the light with this control. The same goes with Z-Wave and other standards and devices. We are planning, yes, to add more alarms, including paradox, and we'll also include settle into our devices. But right now on our priority list is paradox first. Yes, of course you will need KNX light dimmer for that. You cannot dim with normal switch, for example. You need a dimmer in any case. Maybe any other question? Okay, there is another question. Can we make light turning on with motion sensors? Yes, you can do that. We have a special task for that. It's called motion movement detector. So you can use your, for example, DSC alarm sensors to turn on some KNX lights, for example. And if this is my light on KNX, I would like to turn it on with some sensor in on DSC alarm. So if I have a DSC sensor, now I can create a movement detector task and define the output value, which will be my KNX light. So that's my KNX light, and I want my input value. There could be more input values, more sensors for one light. I would like to add my DSC zone. So when this sensor will be triggered, my device, my light, KNX light, will be turned on for 60 seconds. Here you can then set your custom delay. I don't know, 2 minutes. And you can also set different conditions. For example, here you can define the brightness value. So if you also have a brightness sensor, or you can use your KNX brightness sensor for that. And if the brightness will be higher than the value written here, then the sensor will not be triggered. And the same goes for if you don't have the brightness sensor, you can do this by night value setting, and you can use our sun node, which calculates the day mode based on your building location. And if you don't have the brightness sensor, and you can use that also. Yeah, in case that movement detector detects a movement during the countdown, it resets and starts the countdown from the start. So as long as you are in the room, the light will not go off. When you leave the room, and when there is no motion detected anymore, then it will last for 2 minutes in our example, and then it will turn off. Okay, there is another question, an example for radiator heating. We have a task thermostat, which you can use for that purpose. We have two types of thermostat. One is switching. It means it only switches on and off the output. And the second one is our PID thermostat, which is continuously controlling the output value, for example, from 0 to 100%. And in this case, you can you define your system type. So in our example, radiators, then the mode, heating or cooling, and then you define your input value, which is the temperature of your room. So if you have a temperature sensor, for example, I will make a virtual variable. It's temperature, and Then I will also create a control value. For example, have a KNX KNX module for controlling the waves. And here under input value, I just put in my room temperature, and under output value, here under continuous output value, I add my output control value. And here, that's it. Now the thermostat will control the temperatures in your room. Here it says the Danfoss does not report temperature back. It's not a problem. You can use any other temperature sensor and control the Danfoss thermostat with, for example, your multi sensor, which is in the same room. You can use the temperature from multi sensor, and then control the Danfoss thermostat, the Danfoss valve with our task, thermostat task. Is it possible to make a graph for a water pulse counter? Yes, of course it's possible. Again, if you have a KNX pulse counter and you have, for example, okay, this is my pulse. And actually the pulse, the KNX counters usually are counting the value with unsigned. So this is my counter. And then I can create a task counter log. And here I can link the input value, my counter. And for example, I have to scale data, of course, and one pulse means, for example, I don't know, 100 liters of water or something. And then this counter log will automatically count the values from the counter, and then you can use that counter in your theme. To display, for example, the counter itself, which is basically a graphical interface where you will see the log, or you can just show the statistic data, for example, the total value, the last 24 hours value, today count, yesterday, daily average, this month and previous month, and monthly average, like a label, like this. Okay, if there is no any other questions, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I would like to invite you to see our next webinar about Z-Wave. Thank you and goodbye.